Happy trade deadline eve to you, sir.
Is it happy? I mean, I hope it's happy for you guys.
Right. Well, it's just
Give me
interesting.
the Thursday afternoon.
Interesting, even if not happy.
Yeah.
Why have we seen so much action on Tuesday instead of the leading instead of Thursday?
You know, I think a lot of it was teams going back to last week, just wondering about the Giannis situation. Giannis situation was holding things up, and I think it's more of a realization that the Giannis thing is unlikely to happen. And if you're a team who maybe thought you were going to get in and realized it's impossible, then you go ahead and make your other moves and move on with your deadline plans. Obviously, Giannis thing is still up in the air, but I think the number of teams that thought they could be involved either directly or as a third team had dwindled down, and that's why you saw some moves being made over the past couple of days.
Right. Where do things stand right now between the Knicks and a potential pursuit of Giannis Antetokounmpo?
Very much outside looking in. I know there was a couple of reports that the Knicks love their roster, and I'm not here to really quibble. But my thing is, if the Bucks called them and they said, "Look, we changed our mind. We'll take Karl Towns. We'll take XYZ. We want to make this deal." Are the Knicks hanging up the phone? Of course not. So
Right.
I think it's more so like they don't have the assets to seriously get in that conversation right now, and that's why it's a very remote possibility. Other teams are still very much in there, but I don't think the Knicks will be one of them, barring a big sea change between now and Thursday.
This is going to come across like me mocking the Knicks. I have no reason to mock the Knicks. They're a wonderful franchise right now, but what you just described feels very similar to when they lost out on Durant. Like, oh, we weren't interested in anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, if Kevin Durant wanted to go to the Knicks, they would have signed him. And similar vein, yes, they love their roster. Yes, they can compete for a title without him. But if the Bucks had an interest in their package, then they'd be all over it. Is that a fair kind of comparison?
That's exactly how I see it, and I remember that report. You didn't see that report from me because I would not think that was true. I didn't think it was true at the time, but yeah, certainly. I think if and let's be adults, if the Bucks were going to say, "Look, we'll do this now. We want to do it with you guys," they would do it. And so it's about assets, and I do think that obviously the Knicks are playing better, and I think that there's a warranted confidence in the group that they have. But let's just be honest about the Giannis stuff. I prefer that rather than the idea that they love their roster and they're sitting pat because of that.
Yeah, and let's put the Giannis thing aside because it doesn't seem like it is plausible or feasible, really, as you were just mentioning. But do you see the Knicks doing anything then?
Yeah, I think there are other moves here, and part of it hinges on Gershon Yabusele and what team would be willing to take on his contract. He's got that player option for next year, which makes it difficult to move. I do think something happens there by Thursday, and I'm still looking at Jose Alvarado as an option for them, and I'm still keeping an eye on the backup big market. They had checked in with Phoenix on Nick Richards. There was some progress there a few days back. I think it stalled out. And then Yves Missy in New Orleans. I just think that those are the two areas where their focus has been leading up to this week, and I don't see any reason why it would sway from there at this point.
The status currently of Deuce McBride feels up in the air. Is that going to impact what they decide to do at the trade deadline? Maybe some concern over him?
Yeah, I don't think I would just say that his absence all along, I checked on it, was not trade related. Whether they're concerned about his long-term health, I don't know. In terms of they would trade him because of that concern, I don't know that. I just know that the absence with the ankle, not related to like a pending trade at all. So given that, I mean, the Knicks, I can tell you the Knicks were wanted to be in on Jaren Jackson Jr. They talked to Memphis about Jaren Jackson Jr. To the point where I think there was parameters of an offer made. So that they were still active in non-Giannis deals as of a couple of days ago, but just where everything sits now, there's still a lot of moving pieces. You still wonder what's going to happen in Memphis with Ja Morant, and Chicago, Kobe White, but the board looks like it's going to end up with the Knicks making one of these moves that I just talked about with Yabusele, with an Alvarado, and maybe a backup big.
Yeah, it feels like some teams are now positioning themselves, and I think your read was right that teams are out on the Giannis thing, so They need to get their teams right for a push. Second half of the season, obviously in the postseason. You see it with Cleveland. They're bringing James Harden, Detroit. Does this shake anything up? Like any of these moves that have happened already? Is it shaking up how we feel about who is now the favorite in the East? Because it still feels wide open when you think about it.
Yeah, I agree, Tiki. And look, that conversation changes if somehow, some way, Milwaukee lands Giannis. Obviously, it's a different conversation then. But I think that you look at Cleveland, the trade to me made sense. You bringing in a James Harden who's obviously older, but still very productive, and brings you a different element than Darius Garland did.
Yeah.
And so to me, the Cavs got better.
Right.
Yeah, if he's healthy. The Cavs got better. And Boston was interesting because, I just coming into the year, we all kind of figured they're going to punt on this season. No Jason Tatum. They played very well. And I think their attitude at the deadline was very different. They wanted to improve their team.
Right.
They were in on Jaren Jackson Jr. at the end of it. And now landing Vucevic, they got better. They improved their center position. I mean, we could debate about the defense and what it's actually going to look like on the floor, but they were committed to improving their roster. And so that to me is interesting. It's not like they're punting on this thing. Who knows what's going to happen with Jason Tatum, but they want to win games.
That's what's kind of funny. We're talking to Ian Begley. The teams surrounding the Knicks to different levels all have made moves over the last few days.
Right.
You had that three-team trade with Chicago, Minnesota, and Detroit, where they're adding, Kevin Huerter and Dario Saric.
Right.
You've got Boston adding Vucevic, which you just talked about. You got Cleveland adding James Harden. Do you think rivals around the Knicks making moves? And obviously the Sixers lost Paul George for 25 games due to the drug suspension. Do you think moves around the Knicks will impact Leon's aggressiveness one way or the other?
Just in how he's operated, in my understanding, over the course of his tenure, I don't think he'll get swayed in a big way by anything that's happened so far. I don't think that'll cause him to totally shift his plans, shift his focus. And also, I mean, they're just limited in what they can do, because unless you want to trade a Josh Hart or a Mitchell Robinson from a salary perspective, you're kind of limited there. And but I don't think, just to answer the question, I don't think that it changes much up there. But Evan, I would say this. I wish the Nets would land Giannis Antetokounmpo just because I want to hear your reaction live on the radio. I need it.
Don't do that.
I need it.
Don't do that to me. Can you at least confirm to me that they're not dumb enough to even be involved? Are the Nets making it? Because I know they can get them. I get it. They got 1 million draft picks. But can you at least confirm for my own soul that the Nets are not active in the Giannis market?
They are not, that I've heard. They are not. I've heard, as a third team, but I haven't heard as a direct one-to-one trade. Go ahead.
Good. Now, this question is from my son, because my son Jed has fallen in love with Michael Porter Jr. Which
I love it.
I can't,
You don't want him to go anywhere.
Well, I've explained to him why it would make sense to trade him.
Right.
And I've admitted I've gone back and forth on Michael Porter Jr. in that, hey, if you can get 2 first-round picks, let's have a conversation. But I also know the Nets are going to pivot to try to win next year. It feels foreign considering the way they're non-competitive over the last week or so. But as of right now, where is this place for Michael Porter Jr.? Are they asking for a lot? And if they don't get it, they'll keep him? What are they thinking in relation to Michael Porter Jr.?
I can only say, talking to other teams who have been talking to these guys, the draft asking price is high, and that goes for everybody, including a Nick Claxton. Some teams think maybe you get Claxton for a first, but others have said 2 firsts. So the draft asking price has been very high for Claxton, and I assume for all the Nets, because they just want picks back. That's what teams are saying. Like a team the other day was like, they don't like. We're talking about players that are like, what picks do you have? Let's figure it out this way. So that's what it is for them. Draft compensation. I think you're 100% right. I mean, if somebody comes and bowls them over with a crazy offer, you have to do that for a Michael Porter Jr., even though, as you're saying, he could help you win games next year if that indeed is your pivot. The idea is to get him as much draft compensation as you can and move from there.
Now, this is where I will bring it back to Giannis and even the Nets and the Knicks. If the Bucks decide not to trade him and they take this into the summer, a lot changes.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks have more draft capital to offer, and there is a world in which even I, as a Net fan, would be more open to acquiring him. They win the lottery. They're now trying to win right now. They're going to pair Giannis with this young core. Okay, we can have a conversation. Are the Bucks leaning towards that, where they know there could be more suitors, the Knicks could offer more? Like, do you sense that may be the avenue here, that Giannis doesn't get traded before tomorrow at 3?
Yeah, they definitely know that the board will look different in the offseason, probably more draft compensation, more legit suitors. The thing here is I think it's at the ownership level, basically, in terms of signing off or not signing off. And again, we talked about having to be blown out of the water if you're Brooklyn to trade Michael Porter Jr. Obviously, the same is the case with Giannis, because the easier move is to go into that offseason and play with more chips. And so the thing that I'm looking at is, can they make a trade somehow with Portland where you send the Portland first rounders that Milwaukee owns back to Milwaukee, so they get those picks back, they control them, and then you figure out the rest of it. That's the thing that I'm keeping an eye on, because Minnesota was aggressive on Kevin Durant, and I think they are being very aggressive here with Giannis. So that's the one spot in addition to Miami where I'm keeping an eye on, but I think odds are this thing drags into the offseason.
Ian, we had a conversation the other day about Roger Goodell answering questions at the Super Bowl, and one that we were interested with whether it would be asked, it was about the tanking issue in the NFL. And if there is one, it feels like it is full blown in the NBA.
Despite rule changes.
Despite the rule changes, it feels like teams are just saying, all right, we're going to the bottom. And we're not even Trae Young gets traded and hasn't played. I haven't even seen him. He's probably not going to play for the rest of the year. Darius Garland, to be quite honest with you, with his toe injury, he might not play. So how bad of an issue is this? And is the league worried about it at all?
I think there is concern. I guess there's more they could do, right? I think there's steeper penalties that you could throw out there, but I just think in terms of the protected draft picks, I think that's where this thing starts, and not where it all starts, but a big part of the tanking stuff is because of these protected picks. You look at Washington, you guys mentioned it, the Knicks would get their first round pick if Washington had a pick 9 or higher.
Right.
And so they're doing everything they can to stay at 8 or below because they want to keep their pick. So I think if you tweaked rules around the protections, I think that could maybe make some headway in terms of this, because fans who pay attention, they know what's going on. They know Trae Young, if in a normal world, would he be sitting out the rest of the season for the Hawks? No. And so I think it's an issue that I'm sure the league continues to look at. I just wonder if something changes there with the draft protections. And you bring up the league, and we talked about the Harden trade. I just want to say, I think everything that happens with the Clippers right now, you have to include the perspective of the NBA, that investigation into Kawhi and Steve Ballmer and all that, because I can't say anything other than I know the league took it seriously, is taking it seriously. So I think everything that happens over there, you have to include that lens into it. And, I think at some point, probably later this year, we'll find out the results of that investigation and what kind of impact it does have on the Clippers.
We're talking to Ian Begley of SNY. NBA trade deadline is tomorrow. So if you had to guess, based on your reporting, Giannis stay or is Giannis moved?
My guess would be Minnesota. Yeah.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I think
I think that's like a Kawhi situation where they do it without the guarantee that he re-signs there. Right. They roll the dice. That's my guess.
And that's the other elements I brought up earlier, that more teams would potentially be involved in Giannis during the offseason. But you also run the risk of Giannis using his contract status as a no trade, where he can say, I'm not going to re-up. You mentioned Minnesota would be willing to do it now. Yeah, because they get 2 cracks at the apple. If it's only one crack at the apple, teams would be less willing. I wonder if that's a fear that the Bucks have, that Giannis could, even though there's more teams involved, actually shrink the field based on him using his contract essentially as a no-trade clause.
Absolutely. I mean, that has to factor into their thinking. And the other thing is, you guys are talking about tanking. If Giannis stays with the Bucks beyond the trade deadline, they're going to be playing for the draft. They're going to be wanting to get the best draft compensation possible. Well, they have to butt heads with Giannis in terms of having him sit out due to a quote unquote injury.
Right.
Will he want to play? Does that become an issue? So I don't know how much that part is a factor. Yeah, but certainly the leverage and how it shifts between now, trade deadline, versus around the draft in a few months, it's much different.
Should be an interesting time. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, we'll get all the answers. Ian, we always appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you, Ian.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Here he is, Ian Begley of SNY.